Hey guys, welcome back to this week's poll here on Comic Relief Cast. I'm your host Jake.
And I'm your host Josh, and this is
What Are We Reading?
Thank you so much for that, Josh. I hope your throat doesn't hurt nearly as bad as mine do when I try to do that.
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
As you guys can see, you've clicked on the Marvel segment for this week, and what we're going to be doing is going over all the latest Marvel books that are coming out this week, hitting on April 10th. Going through everything like there. So if you guys have not already picked them up, this is a spoiler-free review. You guys can listen here. We're not going to give you guys any spoilers. We're just going to let you know what you could, what you should pick up, maybe what you shouldn't pick up. Just give you guys our thoughts. If you guys have been listening this far, you guys know kind of what my tastes are, what Josh's tastes are. So
we're saying, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
With that, Josh is going to get right into a War of the Realms tie-in with the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl number 43.
Yep, it's written by North, and then pencils are done by South. No, Ryan North and Derek Charm. And I haven't been reading any of the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. This is more just trying to see if this is a must-read tie-in. And it really isn't. It's mostly just kind of like showing you that War of the Realms is affecting everybody. Now, there is a nice little, like if you wanted to read it, there is a nice little extra piece of information that could go with War of the Realms, but nothing that's really crucial and important. You're not missing out with not reading this. But if you did want to widen this world, this event, it definitely would be a good pickup. I would probably give this book, because I didn't hate it, but it's definitely not my cup of tea. I'm going to give this book just right down the middle. I'm going to give it about 2.5 Romans.
2.5 Romans. All right, I'm going to move on. Well, we are going to move on to War of the Realms, Journey into Mystery, number 1. It's written by the McElroys. I don't know. And it's drawn by Andre Lima Araujo. And right away, guys, this is something I'm a little bummed out about being a 5-issue ongoing little mini-series. This is something I really wanted War of the Realms to kind of stray away from, was doing these continuing mini-series that tie into War of the Realms. This is kind of your definition of a ragtag team, though. You've got Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, you've got Simon Williams, Wonder Man, you've got Balder the Brave, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Little Girl,
Got
Deathlock.
Yeah, you got like a Deathlock female character.
Yeah, you got Thori, the killer dog, and I feel like there's
Druid.
Druid,
Druid.
was last time I remember seeing him was on the Secret Warriors way back in the day. So during like I think Secret Invasion. So, anyways, that's kind of your lineup, and what this is they're basically, for some reason, they're like, oh, we're gonna introduce Thor and Balder and Loki have this new baby sibling, and this is like a road trip mission of keeping the baby safe. Kind of a weird thing to do, kind of a weird thing to add into the War of the Realms. I don't know how this ties in overall. The end of this book does have me very curious. It has my interest piqued because there's a character introduced that I absolutely love. A little bummed out that that person is making their appearance in this book, because overall I didn't love this book or really like it that much.
To me, it was just kind of like a mediocre comic. I don't really feel like this book was needed as of right now. I mean, there could be something else that happens that makes me feel like, okay, I understand now.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's a little disappointing when I read it, because I really like this lineup. I think this team...
It's a weird team.
It's a weird team, and I like the idea of these characters, if written well, how they would all interact with each other. But the problem is the writers aren't very well
versed,
when it comes to, and I'm not either.
I'm with you. I like Kate Bishop, Hawkeye enough. I really like, for some reason, I like Wonder Man. I really like Balder the Brave. I did notice a continuity flub from the writers. They obviously haven't been reading the Thor series all the way back from like 2008, because I have, but there is definitely a line that does not jive with actual
Can
Marvel
we get
continuity.
like up on the screen saying like hipster Jake right there?
Yeah, hey, cool. I did it before school. So I do like a couple of these characters, but you're right, the writers don't know how to write these characters. They don't provide the right voices. These don't feel like the characters you've been reading in other titles, especially Miles and Kate Bishop. They don't feel, I should also say Balder. Balder especially does not feel like Balder from the comics that I've been reading. But anyway, with that, guys, I will say this does not feel like an essential must-pick-up War of the Realms tie-in. If you're reading War of the Realms, this is not something you need to get as a companion piece. I think this is something on its own. Maybe there are going to be a few things that later on in a War of the Realms main issue, it will say, see Journey into Mystery issue 2 or something like that, but that might be all you really need. I don't think you're going to need to read this series. I'm not going to be picking it up. For me, I'm going to give this book 2.2 Romans.
I'm at 2.3 Romans.
All right, moving on to another War of the Realms tie-in. We're getting all the War of the Realms tie-ins out of the way for this week. We're going to get into Asgardians of the Galaxy, issue number 8. And I have also not been reading this, but the writer is Cullen Bunn and the artist is Matteo Lawley. I have not been reading as Guardians of the Galaxy, so I don't know how this interrupts the pacing of the series going on. I don't know if this is like an abrupt issue or if everything's been kind of leading up to this. But again, another little ragtag team of characters, ones that are really B, C, D list characters. And what'd you think, Josh?
I mean, for the most part, I did. It's not horrible. It wasn't a horrible read. It's enjoyable. I can understand why some people are still getting as Guardians of the Galaxy. But for the most part, it's the same thing like with Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. There's really nothing in here that really kind of provides more information for War of the Realms. It just kind of helps gives this event a more broad. It makes it feel more like it's an actual thing, that it's actually affecting this whole Marvel universe. And so if you want that full effect, that full enjoyment, then that's understandable. But you do not need to pick this up.
No, I can only think that maybe at some point in War of the Realms, again, something will be addressed from this book, and it'll say, see as Guardians number 8. But that's really it. I don't think that this is something that you need extensive background on. This does feel like kind of a throwaway tie-in issue. This doesn't feel like as Guardians was leading up to this moment or anything. And I don't really care about the characters. This issue didn't make me feel anything about the characters, but I will say this is also the first time I looked at who the writer was on this book, and now I'm not surprised. I'm not a big fan of Cullen Bunn. So with as Guardians number 8, I'm going to give this book 2.1 Romans. It's just not something I'd be picking up for War of the Realms.
I give it 2.4 Romans.
Okay, so you liked it a little bit more than the Journey into Mystery.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
All right, I'm going to be moving on to Star Wars Age of Rebellion, Princess Leia. The story is done by Greg Pak, and the art is done by Chris Sprouse and Carl Story. And I actually have to say, since I read all of the other Star Wars Age of Rebellion stuff that was all written by Jody Houser, this is a giant step up from that stuff. This is more along the lines of what I wanted to see from the other ones that Jody Houser was writing. This is definitely a lot better. This is basically taking place between episodes 5 and 6 when Hans and Carbonite and Leia and Lando and Chewie go to rescue him. This sheds more light on how they got there, what they had to do, why was Leia dressed up as a Bosch or Bausch, however you want to pronounce it, but all that. But what Greg Pak really was able to do was make Leia and Lando and Chewie and everybody really likable, and it was also able to flesh out the world and did not break continuity. It also, it fit in. It's like there's this little gap of time that was never really explored in the movies, and they exploit it here. Really well done. I'm going to give this one 2.75 Romans.
I read Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man number 5 by Tom Taylor, and pencils are done by Yildiray Sinyer. I don't know. I'm horrible with names. This issue, no spoilers, but it's supposed to be where Spider-Man is supposed to be dealing with the idea of Aunt May having cancer. And it gets you kind of right there in the beginning, but they don't really continue with it, and it kind of bugs me a little bit. But I will say this, Tom Taylor's Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man run has not been a bad run. It's been a decent run, but with how many good Spider-Man storylines are going on right now, it does get kind of lost in all that pile of Spider-Man that comes out. I'm going to give this issue a 2.75 Romans.
All right, moving on to Captain Marvel, number 4. It's written by Kelly Thompson, the artist Carmen Carnero. And, it's still going on, the whole world of women, and they're trying to break out from Nuclear Man, who's a total ripoff of Superman 4, Quest for Peace. But anyway, it's kind of more of the same. But this one, as you can tell by the cover, it's Carol fighting Rogue again, which that kind of novelty should maybe draw in some Captain Marvel fans who are real Carol Danvers fans, I should say. That should draw you in a little bit because this is like the next matchup between the two of them. And it is pretty cool. I do still get the sense that there's like a little bit of man-hating going on here and there, but it does seem to be toned down a lot more in this issue because it's actually trying to propel the story forward. I feel like in the first 3 issues, they could have really condensed those into at least 2 issues, no problem. I felt like they were kind of dragging it out, and the filler was a little bit more geared towards like, this is a book for strong women, you know what I mean? Like, men need not apply kind of thing. But I think this is probably the most enjoyable issue so far out of the 4 issues.
So it keeps going up because you said that about number 3 too.
True.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
But it was a low bar. I'm going to have to put that out there. It was a low bar.
As a Carol Danvers fan, this was like the novelty of like her going against Rogue was really cool to see, and I was kind of happy to see that. And the writing has gotten better. Now I feel like there was like some kind of like stall kind of going on in those first 3 issues, and now you can tell that the story is moving, and I'm kind of curious to see where the rest of this storyline goes.
Right, especially with the way this book ends.
Yeah, with the way this book ends, I'm curious to see where the rest of this goes.
I thought it was honestly, I'm gonna say it was a clever little idea. I would have never thought of something like that, so I have to give it some props for that.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to give this book, I'm just going to go a little bit, I'm going to go about 3.1 Romans.
Okay, I'm going to go a little lower. I'm going to go 2.8 Romans.
All right.
All right, we're moving on to Web of Venom, Cult of Carnage, #1 by Frank Thierry, and done by, the art's done by Danilo S. Beyruth and Andres Massa. And I have not been reading Venom, so why don't you go ahead and take this away? I think you might be better to lead this
Me and you are going to have massive differences on this.
Maybe.
I actually enjoyed it. I kind of like, the only thing that really bugs me is that you can definitely tell the absence of Donny Cates' writing, but I do kind of like where the story's going. I like the way it felt. It kind of had this horror-based kind of feel to it, and I think it is a good addition to the Venom stuff. The only thing that bugs me about it is that it could, one, Donny Cates is not writing, and two, I feel like this could have been condensed down and could have been put into a Venom actual issue, and you could have had the whole thing kind of go in there. But I've been feeling that way with a lot of the Web of Venom stuff.
Yeah, for me, it felt like an attempt at something like Wolverine the Long Night, but not nearly as successful. What they try to do with like this kind of investigation, figure out what's going on. We're trying to unravel the mystery, but for me, the mystery was never intriguing, so I didn't care. I found myself pretty bored through about half this book. The most exciting part to me was the collecting, what they were collecting. I wanted to know, okay, why are they collecting these things? Because that's really weird.
I'll talk to you about it off air.
Okay, and so if I'm not reading Venom and I'm reading just this book by itself, I don't understand why they're collecting what they're collecting, and then I never get the answer as to why they're collecting what they're collecting.
See, and I think that they think that doing it as a one-shot type thing like this, that a lot of people would just think it's eerie, and that they wouldn't question it. But I think that
but
as
obviously
another person, you would question it.
Well, obviously the story is meant to continue, and because it's a one-shot, we're gonna have people coming in here. When's the next issue come out? And I gotta go, well, you got to pick up Venom whenever they decide to continue the story going on, because the next issue is supposed to be a War of the Realms tie-in. But for me, it was okay. It had very few ups, mostly just kind of middling, mediocre, lulls for me. I think what it felt like to me was a cheap knockoff of a mix between Wolverine: A Long Night and Gideon Falls. Like I felt like both those things were meshed together, but not done nearly as successfully. But it's also Carnage. People love the symbiotes. This is gonna have no trouble moving. People are going to pick this up. So
yeah, and then the people that have been picking up Venom, there's a lot of people that pick up Venom and has been reading it. This is a nice little addition to what you've been reading in Venom. It's still following the God Knoll and everything like that.
Right.
But I give this book, I enjoyed it. But the price point on this book and how it is a $1.99 book, and how it is a one shot, and I feel like this could have been just thrown into a Venom issue at some point. That's gonna deduct a little bit. I'm gonna give it a 3.2.
Okay, I'm going considerably lower. I'm gonna go 2.45 Romans for me. Just not something that I care about. But again, guys, my tastes are I am not a big fan of the symbiotes in general. So if you are, this might be much more up your alley.
All right. I read Winter Soldier #5 by Kyle Higgins and Rob Rice. This is actually the end of this storyline. I've been liking the Winter Soldier one. This kind of just concludes everything with RJ and Bucky and the really weird cliffhanger that happened at the end. This issue kind of has me a little questionable. Like it's ending on this point where it leaves me with way too many questions, and so that kind of like really bugs me. So this issue in general, I'm probably going to give it. I'll probably give it like a 2.7. The event as a whole, I'd probably grade it about at 2.75. It has some really great moments, but this just ends with way too many questions for me.
Well, I think unfortunately that series was not meant to be a mini-series until after it started and after it came out. Yeah. So I think that really kind of kneecapped it. All right, moving on to Star Wars Age of Rebellion, Grand Moff Tarkin, written by Greg Pak, and the art's done by Mark Lamming. And as a guy who does like Star Wars, and was never really a fan of Grand Moff Tarkin other than the fact that Peter Cushing played him and, that made him more interesting than actually the writing for the character. This issue is pretty awesome. This issue is pretty damn brutal. I have to give it that. I never thought of Grand Moff Tarkin as being a badass, but that's about the only way I can describe him after having read this issue. It gives a little bit of backstory, where he's from, how he grew up. It's not much, but it's just enough to let you inform you of who this character is and where he came from and how he came to be who he is. It actually does intersect very quickly from the very beginning of A New Hope, where they blow up Alderaan. So you're playing with that time period. Really cool little issue. Really gives you an idea of Grand Moff Tarkin. I thought it was pretty badass. I'm gonna give this one 3.5 Romans.
We also read Symbiote Spider-Man #1 by Peter David and Greg Land. I got two old powerhouses kind of working on the book, Spider-Man again. This follows Spider-Man during the Black Suit period, sometime in between the Venom Saga stuff and Secret Wars. I went backwards with it on you guys because I feel like doing that.
Secret Wars to the Venom stuff,
Yeah, so this deals with Spider-Man, pretty much Spider-Man versus Mysterio. What did you think, Jake?
What I think? I thought it was okay. I really appreciated the pencils in this book. It feels like a really nice change of pace from what I've been getting from like Humberto Ramos and Amazing Spider-Man, so I really appreciated the art in this book. But it felt kind of like a generic Spider-Man story. I think Mysterio gets a little bit more spotlight than I was expecting, which I think is all, this book is all the better for. But I actually feel like because of that, Spider-Man kind of got sidelined for that. He gets some time to shine, but we don't really get a lot of time with Spider-Man, I don't think. I think some of the best stuff, well, actually, I take it back. We get some really good stuff with Spider-Man, or Peter and Black Cat. I think that's where this book really shines, and that's honestly what I wanted to read more of. But it looks like this book is going to be ongoing for a few issues at least, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be a mini-series. I personally, for me, the whole book was just a tease.
Yeah.
Because I really like it when a book digs into the psychology of the character, like they really dig into the psyche of the characters, and it kind of keeps feeling like you're going to get those with the moments with Mysterio. You're going to get those with moments with Peter.
It gets cut short.
And he gets cut short.
Yeah.
Granted, so I'm intrigued to see where the story is going because it feels like there is potential for them to do that. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, it's a tease. Like, I don't know where this book is kind of going story-wise, but I kind of feel like it might go it could go one or the other way.
Yeah, and it's also a $4.99 price point. It's not your typical $3.99 book, and it does have a really good Art Germ Gwen Stacy variant that I would definitely consider getting. If you're getting 2 copies, cool. If you can only get the one, I might be getting the Gwen Stacy one personally. I just think Art Germ's a great artist. But for Symbiote Spider-Man #1, price point with it not being great, it feels like your kind of standard Spider-Man fare. I'm going to give this one about 2.85 Romans.
I'm a little bit higher. I'm on 3 Romans, just because I'm hoping.
All right, moving on to Avengers No Road Home #9, written by Jim Zub, Mark Waid, and Al Ewing, and the artist is Paco Medina. It's nice to see Paco Medina coming back. But this one starts off really weird with like Blue Marvel and like what you had on your U.S. Avengers team a little bit of. But then it gets right back into the nitty-gritty with Hercules, Spectrum, Wanda, Vision, Conan, all those guys. And we get some really, really strong character moments. Especially with Hercules. I thought Hercules had some of the best character moments in this whole book. I think this was definitely, if you really kind of strip everything away, this is more of a Hercules-centered book than anything, and I really appreciated the book for that. And I found this to be actually one of the strongest entries of the past probably 4 issues.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a couple of kind of dull moments there, but it's still like dull moments and a really good run. I give a lot of props to this book, just for,
especially because it's also weekly too.
It's a weekly title that's for 10 issues, and you have 3 writers on it. We just watched Uncanny X-Men fail at doing this, so it's kind of cool to see a book actually succeed. And we only got 1 more issue left. I'm curious to see how this ends. And you talk about Hercules moments. I'm talking about Vision moments.
Vision has some really good moments.
Vision has some great moments, plus a great Vision cover by Pucci.
Oh, absolutely.
But I will say, out of the past 4 issues, this was probably the one that was better out of the past 4.
Yeah, I think since issue 5, this is probably the best one since then. It's got some of the best character moments. It's progressing the story forward, but I also think it also really sheds a little bit more light, no pun intended, on Nyx, the villain, too. She gets a little bit more to do, and we get a little bit more insight into who she is and what she wants, and I appreciate that. I like when you can flesh out the villain a little bit more. So with Avengers No Road Home #9, I'm going to give this book 3.3 Romans.
I'm at 3.3 Romans as well.
All right, moving on to The Amazing Spider-Man #19 by Nick Spencer and Gerardo Sandoval. And one first thing I noticed was Sandoval's art is not Humberto Ramos's, but it doesn't jive with me the same way Humberto Ramos is. It's just not what I want out of my Spider-Man book.
It's funny because it kind of reminds me of a mix between Ramos and Otley.
It does. Yeah,
it's like right there in the middle.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But it's not really what I want from my Spider-Man art, especially with some of the weird poses that Sandoval puts him in. But I think this is a pretty good book. I didn't get a chance to review the 18-point-HU with the Gibbon. You were not wrong, Josh. That was one of the most heart-wrenching books I've ever read. I had a lump in my throat pretty much the whole damn time. Great issue. If you guys can pick that book up, you can find it still. Definitely give that a read if you haven't. This book has also got some really good moments, and it actually surprisingly highlights Vulture as a character and how much of an asshat he really is.
Yeah, he really is. I know I need to be talking about this issue in general, but I will say this Hunted event has been a solid little Spider-Man event.
It has.
I do really enjoy it. I'm glad I stuck on to Amazing as long as what I did.
Right.
Waiting for this like Craven's Hunted deal.
Yeah, I don't remember how often I was beating that drum where they would keep introducing Craven stuff in the beginning of an issue and they would just never go back, and I just kept going, when is this going to come into play? Happy I stuck with it. I think there's one really good surprise in this book towards the end. Did not see this one coming at all. And then what happens at the very end of this book, I was pissed off that there weren't at least a couple more pages. I want to read the next issue because I really want to know what needs to be said and what's going on ultimately, because there's a few questions brought up that aren't answered probably in the next issue, not the point HU, but in the next issue. With that, though, I'm going to give Amazing Spider-Man Hunted, or Amazing Spider-Man number 19, I'm going to give it 3.25 Romans.
I'm going to give it 3.5.
Okay.
Romans.
All right. And then the last issue we're going over for this episode, thank you so much if you're still listening with us. I know it's a long one. There's a lot of books to go over this week. It's Invaders number 4, and it's written by Chip Zdarsky, and the artists are Carlos Magno and Butch Guice. And I think this is easily one of the strongest entries from Marvel this week, if not one of the most consistently good little series so far. It's only 4 issues in, but every issue I think has been absolutely stellar. And this one delves into a little bit more to Namor, what's been going on with him since the 60s. We all have questions about what was going on with him and Professor X. And what I really appreciate about this book is that they are sticking with Marvel continuity. Everything that you kind of know about Namor and Marvel continuity, dating back all the way to Fantastic Four, early issues of that, it all is coming into play. They're addressing all those time periods. I really appreciate it for that. And I think the art's great too. It really makes it feel, I get the same feeling as I did reading Ed Brubaker's Captain America when Steve Epting was on the art. I kind of get that feel from this book, and it really sucks me in.
Yeah, I agree 100%. This book, I really love this series, and I'm glad that I gave a chance onto it. I'm not a huge Namor fan, and I feel like if you're not a huge Namor fan, this will make you a Namor fan. Zdarsky knows how to write for him, and it's great, and the story idea is really cool so far, and it ends on this big, huge kind of cliffhanger that just kind of makes you go, now I can't wait for the next issue.
Right, I was going to say that kind of heel turn twist there towards the end really raised some questions for me. Really, it's got my eyebrows raised. And there's also a couple parts in between a specific mutant that gets introduced when they're kind of flashing back that I want to know more about.
I know, me too.
It kind of reminded me of Leech, but it's obviously not Leech. But anyway, with this, guys, not going to hide, this is my favorite issue from Marvel this week. It's not by much, but it is my favorite. I'm giving this one 3.6 Romans.
I'm at 3.6 as well.
All right, Josh, now here it comes. If you only had enough money to pick up 3 issues out of everything we went over today, what are the 3 issues you would recommend picking up from Marvel this week?
Amazing Spider-Man. If you can get back any back issues for this Hunted event, I think that you should jump on it. Avengers No Road Home is the same thing. I think that this week is definitely a must pick up, and if you haven't been picking up, go back and try to get as many back issues as you can. And then, now I can't. Invaders. Yeah, that was the other one I meant. Invaders. And once again, it's the same thing. If you haven't been getting it, go back and go get your issues. Those are definitely still the best entries for this week.
All right, and for me, I'm going to switch it up just a little bit. I mean, I got to agree with you. Invaders is a must pick up. For me, No Road Home is also a must pick up. But I am loving The Amazing Spider-Man. But to kind of switch it up, because I'm very happy with how refreshing this feels, I would say pick up Grand Moff Tarkin. If you're a Star Wars fan and you're looking for a little one-shot, I think that Grand Moff Tarkin is a really good, solid entry into some Star Wars lore, and I don't think anybody would be disappointed with it. But
so wait. So you're 3, because you said it kind of confusing.
Invaders, No Road Home, Grand Moff Tarkin. Those are my 3 recommendations from this week. But guys, that is all we've got for you for this episode. We know it was a long one. We're at about 25 minutes here. We thank you for listening. If you stayed with us this far, let us know in the comments below what you're planning on picking up. Were you planning on getting something but now you're not, or was there something you weren't planning on now you're gonna get it? Have you already read these books? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Like this video, or thumbs down if you have to. Share with your comic book reading friends, and of course, guys, subscribe to the channel. We're getting really close to that 1,000. I mean, not like ridiculously close, but we're getting there, and we really appreciate all the support so far. And be sure to check out the DC1 episode on the channel as well. Thank you.
Good night.